autistic. And so we code so I walk the truth for her.
My child used to live in Kings Beach.
Yeah.
He loves it. Not anymore though. We're over it.
I hope she was actually being the other chick at the Zoom class yesterday. You know, she can't do the whole lot. She lost it.
When did you get back? So they have all that to deal with. Misdiagnosed. Everybody was going off with misdiagnosis until Wednesday morning. We were about to start all over. We're not doing this now. And CT scans again, contrasting cardiac and we need emergency surgery. We're going to get him in this afternoon, another trauma surgeon.
And he walks away and leaves.
I know. She's down to 6 centimeters, 2.8 centimeters on her abscess, and it's like this big, so it's come down from huge softball size. Next to her. She can drink.
They were sucking me up on the but you can't get all the so it's basically everything you heard about his touches. It's like you scratch yourself with a scab. So it's all along the intestines. So anything that passes through the intestines causes it to expand. So if she was in the hospital for 4 months. Transferred to finally to Wake Forest, where she's research
case. For some reason, her dad had cancer for 20 years, and we've had 12 members of the family die of cancer. It's very serious. And she pulls through, and she takes out the church, just like, well, I was she and she's in her 60s. Yeah, we were here. Things really had been. They're saying our bodies are still in shape because of food and that's what kept her alive. It does. And the trauma surgery is a friend of ours, like I said, she's a good friend of ours, cancer surgery, and she closes the place down just before she starts up. And my wife included the first one there, so we know that people there, and that's why I tell people, our church, so you can go down to Christian church, which is right along there. So we're just going to barn the meeting, our meeting at somebody's Christmas party. We've been there for 6 months now. About ready to go to church. People who go there will tell this and the guys here, several of the guys here are helping out and they're the same thing. They're taking down to the top of this meeting. I'm so sorry. It isn't decent. Trevor's emergency. Everybody goes in there, emergency. All over the doctors and nurses. I miss this. He actually missed it. He actually he was a surgeon. It's not an excuse. It's just my story. I understand that, so I'm not going to be able to make sure that you're just going to know. He said, maybe an outlier. That outlier could pass it better. That's actually exciting to help
Bob, you want to scoot all this back?
This is what it is.
Is that your seat? I'm going to be in the back.
Bob, will you welcome people real quick, and that gets us started, and then David will take over?
Sure. You want me to get that going?
All right, if we can, it's a little after 9, if you can get a seat, Councilman. If we get a seat, it's a little after 9, and you know, I'd like to start on time. I want to welcome everybody on behalf of the Town of Beech Mountain. This is an exciting time for the town. We have an opportunity to, that doesn't come along often, and an opportunity to take a look at our commercial district and come up with a comprehensive plan that not only looks good on paper and has pretty pictures, but something we can actually accomplish, something that can be built. So we put together a team. that's here today. I'll let them introduce themselves here in a minute. But basically, this is a team of top-notch planners. This is a team of marketing people, which I think is paramount to our plan. We've got traffic engineers, we've got transportation folks, we've got architects, landscape folks. This is a really good team to put this plan together. And my direction has been to them, don't show us pretty pictures, although they always do, because that's what they do. But show me something that can be done, something that can be built. The town is in transition as we see additional folks coming into the town. We've had extensive damage from Helene, and now's the opportunity to put a plan together that will actually work and not go on the shelf. So I think this is the time. This is the opportunity that we have, and I'm glad you all came today and become a part of this process. They'll explain how the process is gonna go forward. This is the very beginning. This is the genesis of the plan. And as they move through, they'll do this again in early summertime. And then we hope to see a plan in early fall. Take it to town council, see what it looks like. Hopefully it'll encompass everything that the town would like to see. And then they'll turn to me and they'll say, get some money and make it work. So. David?
Yes, sir.
Come on in.
Thank you.
And introduce yourself and your team.
Thank you very much, Bob. Delighted to be here. Thank you all for being here this morning. 9 o'clock, we didn't have coffee, by the way. My name is David Hill. I've been fortunate enough to be elected to lead this effort to do a potential downtown master plan for the town of Beech Mountain. And it's quite an honor, and I really appreciate it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Maybe come a little further up and,
Yeah.
I don't hear that well.
Oh, that's fine, sure.
What?
Yeah. Thank you very much. And so,
Always one.
one thing, I want to manage the expectation here. You know, we're going to be coming, we've come here this week as really our team's first introduction to Beech Mountain. So we don't have any town plans yet. We're here to learn. And we're like a huge sponge. The more you tell us, the more we'll soak up. And so, you know, just so you know, if we leave here knowing a lot more about Beech Mountain than we knew Monday, we call that a success. And then we will be working on concepts from all that we learned over the next few months. We'll be coming back the second week of July to test those ideas with you. And we call it an iterative process. You know, we kind of draw and say, no, not that. And we draw a little bit more. We're liking that. And we get to yes. And we'll get to yes by the fall, as Bob mentioned. Yes, sir.
Can you introduce what your company is or who,
Yes, sir.
who you are?
Yes, that's on the way. And so, that's a great segue. So, yeah, and so the companies that are involved in this is, my team is called Hill Studio. We're based out of Roanoke, Virginia. And we're the prime consultant. We're sort of the leader of that team. But it's not a type of hierarchical leadership. The way that this works is that we have an extraordinarily talented group of people that we pull together from across the East Coast that also will contribute to this. So let me introduce each of these folks just very briefly. And we'd offer, you know, we're here today, tomorrow, and even Friday morning. And so if you have an interest in meeting with some of these folks, they're here around the room, you know, just come say hi. Over here, Whitney Hodges, very talented planner from Johnson City, Tennessee. Some of you might have already met her, and Whitney is really in charge of gaining the public's opinion. She's been working with a number of meetings. She's got these great big boards around the room where you can share your ideas on a Post-it note, just stick them up there. And so Whitney's sort of the ear of the team and listening to all of us. Also with us from Greenville, South Carolina, Aaron Arnett, AICP. Whitney and Aaron are both also licensed planners. Aaron is a world-class economist. His company is called Arnett Muldrow. He's working in 80% of the United States, each of the states, as well as a number of commissions abroad. Aaron is an economist, and he's learned a lot about the demographics of Beech Mountain, which he'll be sharing, I believe, tomorrow, I believe, in one of the reports. And Aaron has also gotten into a lot of placer data, which is fascinating. It's new stuff that's available. Placer really looks at people's cell phones and sees where they go and where they go next. Has a lot of economics that he'll be sharing with us. Also, and both these gentlemen are from Florida, but from different firms. In the back, Don DeBerry. Don is representing EPR, a transportation firm out of Charlottesville, Virginia, and also Rick Hall. And I will say, Rick has his own firm out of Florida, and Rick is one of the I hope you're okay with this. I'm making this up as a founding fathers of New Urbanism design. It was even involved in the design of Seaside, Florida, as you know, it was one of the very first new towns in Florida in the 1980s. So also with us today from upstate New York, Saratoga Associates, Peter Gerardo. Peter is a world-class illustrator. I've worked with Peter my entire career, all over the world. So I can't wait to see what he gets from all these people and puts into the drawings. Also from Hill Studio in Roanoke, we've brought what we call the travel team. These folks have enough energy and they don't mind putting up with me. And Jonah Collins is a planner. Here he is, Jonah's over here with Hill Studio. Caitlin Adams, junior landscape architect with Hill Studio, and also Carter Smith, junior architect from Hill Studio. And all of us will be drawing up ideas this week for you. And the last part, and I feel like we're announcing boxers here or something, but from Charlotte, North Carolina, an esteemed colleague and leader in New Urbanism, and also a fellow who's worked on over 100 charrettes, most of them leading the team and organizing the charrette. I call him the charrette master. Tom Lowe, and Tom has a company called Civic by Design. If you have a chance, Google that, learn all about Tom and his very careful approach to how to design towns and new towns. And so Tom is going to be leading us this morning in a conversation about what we're doing here. And so it's my pleasure to bring him forward. Tom, anything I've forgotten to mention?
We can talk later about stuff like core ideas.
Okay. Oh yeah. Well, I'll say that next.
Oh, you're doing that next? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So off stage. Okay. All right. And finally, let me talk about the timing of this because we sort of put this together. That Whitney really helped with this. But this is really sort of like the golden moment that you have. I know there've been downtown plans attempted in the past, the economy wasn't right, there are things that just weren't right, but there's several things that have come together that make this a really important time to capture these ideas. And one of them is the leadership. And I would imagine it's both elected leadership and also staff leadership that wants to see an activated plan. As you mentioned, Salt Bob, like, give us a plan we can implement. The second thing is, you have some private sector landowners, a number of them close by, and some maybe even here today. They're also very interested in seeing a very high quality plan come together. And the third issue is that you've kind of grown to a critical mass now at Beech Mountain, where you have a number of full-time residents. And so that makes their markets available for different types of commercial things that weren't possible before. And then the final piece of this is that the town actually owns 40% of the land that we'll be considering for this potential downtown, which is, if we can make a lot of it happen, this is the right time. We're with that moment in time, say between now and the fall, we've got a real opportunity. And I'm also super impressed by the number of folks here today, and also number 5, we've got the town that's interested, right? So, so I'm gonna introduce Tom Lowe, bring him up, and I hope you'll enjoy this. Tom will introduce exactly what we're doing today.
Okay, great, thanks. Anybody else? Really, work. Anyone else coming in? Y'all want to get settled, more chairs, that kind of thing before we jump in? How's it? Everybody good? All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for having us. And I'm going to sit because I have to do technology stuff, and there's also people who are online watching the presentation. So the microphone's here. So, you know, tell me to speak up. If you can't hear me, I'll try to talk loud. Everybody good? Good? All right. Yeah. Okay. Great. So my name's Tom Lowe. I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia, and but spent most of my adult life in Charlotte. I've had a really amazing career because of the people I was able to connect to, including David and a bunch of others. And I've had a 30-year career planning projects, doing downtown redevelopment plans, new towns, resort towns, neighborhoods, beautiful neighborhood expansions, lots of really great stuff. The one main theme that goes through all of those is they're all walkable, and they're all human scale, and they're all connecting people together like traditional towns and traditional neighborhoods. And so that was kind of when we got this request for proposal, they said they were interested in a walkable town center as a main part of what they wanted to do. And I said, well, this looks like a great opportunity for us to help out. And so that's why we're here. And I think that so far, everything that we've seen, every additional thing we've seen, we get more excited about the opportunities here. So we're glad that there's also enthusiasm from the community to come out and actually participate, because we're the type, this kind of process is one that's very grassroots, where we don't set the first line of paper until we have the first meetings, because we want to design everything with you. You have all the knowledge. We have ideas from somewhere else, and now we have to then, you know, hear what your ideas are, and then you can test what we talk about, and we can see through feedback loops. And the reason why we're having a charrette this week, and then also another one after the week after the 4th of July, where we go through feedback loops and we get input. So sometimes you get into these situations where, you know, people are presenting stuff and they say, well, what are you going to do? And else it's too early to tell, really it's too early to tell. And then all of a sudden they come back and say, oops, too late to change, right? Okay, so we don't do that. Everything that's vital in terms of what we do is really what I think is midstream. When a lot of ideas are being thrown out, people are tossing things up in the air, there's a little bit of chaos going on, we're not sure where we're headed. And then things start coming back down again after people start talking and giving feedback and basically, you know, sharpening the pencils and refining everything. And that's where you start getting the ideas. And so if we do these feedback loops, we've pretty much been able to get about a 95% consensus with the people that participate. So we look forward to your participation and your ideas. And you can see by the boards around the room, there are all sorts of ways to do that. Whitney is the master of basically communication, and she's gonna extract stuff from you, like all of us are as we move forward. All right, so what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about what we know so far, which is not that much, but we prepared, you know, base maps and kind of information to help us in terms of physical planning, and also a little bit about, you know, what is a walkable? What do you mean by walkable? What's a walkable neighborhood? What's a walkable town center? I'm going to talk a little bit about that too, and how that might fit, possibly, in different ways with Beech Mountain. So, ready to get started? Any questions so far? Okay, good. All right, just a little reference. And I'm going to use this cursor. You can see this little arrow floating around. I'm not going to use a pointer because the people online can see this. These are the two charrette blocks that we have. The first one on the left is where we are this week, and then the next one is starting on July 7th through July 10th. just as reference, and these are kind of the public meetings that, you can participate in if you're interested. The meetings this week, we are here, this purple box, kickoff presentation, and then we're gonna have a series of more technical discussions. And these are the meetings in green here over the next 2 days. And then, okay. Okay, so, Jason. Jonah, I'm sorry. We're not sharing the slideshow in Teams, it looks like, so.
Oh.
All right. Excuse us while we take a,
It's okay, I've worked with teams before.
kicked in screen view. Sorry.
Well, while we have this pause, on the board, you talk about a mountain destination. Do you have, one or more current mountain destinations that you're going to thinking of taking ideas from?
Yeah, that's actually, what we want to hear from you. We'd like for you all to point us to the places that you like and say, you know, I really love what they did in so-and-so.
Right? Yeah, okay.
All right, so we're back in action? We are, okay.
Now you can't see it here. The rest of the world can see. Okay, we're back, okay.
Okay. This always happens, you know. Have you ever been in a presentation and nothing's? Yeah, so anyway, so the idea is that, yeah, we want y'all to tell us, and we've heard a little bit already. Wendy was here, she came up with some meetings and had little, kind of, what do you call it, kind of groups?
I call them community partner groups.
Community partner groups?
Like interviews.
30 interviews, and so we heard some stuff already. But this is kind of the main, you know, this is the main event here. So base maps, we study the town in terms of the scale of it, how big it is, how far apart things are. I hope you can see this. This is basically the outline of what the, you know, the town limits. And then also basically these kind of 1 mile concentric rings and so forth, all kind of focusing back on the core, you know, kind of town center, you know, where town hall is located and the sledding hill and so forth. Okay, this is just for reference. There are, David mentioned there are town properties. We have these mapped out. The small map at the bottom is the whole town, and everything you see in this kind of sky blue are parcels of town owns. And so there are 2 main places, the town center area and also an area to the north around the lake. And then there are also these little, you know, lots and stuff that are kind of scattered about, that, you know, just basically is in their control. And so this is an aerial view. These are the same views. This just shows you the lake area. This is where we are, right? Yeah, this is where we are. And then, and this is the land of ownership around it at the same scale. So you can see there's kind of a lot of it, you know, is very steep and maybe not buildable, but at least shows you there is a large area. And then this is the town center area that you can see here for reference. Here's the top of Beach and the ski slopes, and then here's the entrance road coming around Town Hall right here, and then on down to the bottom of the hill to the ski resort. So pretty clear. Is that okay?
Yeah.
People, I think some people are map challenged, some people are good with them. So. Now these are some interesting kind of psychedelic maps. Well, what they are, there are 2. We like to analyze what we call slope analysis. Where are the steep areas? You know, there's 5% slope. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what it says. All right. So right here. Okay. You don't have to tell us that. Right? Okay. So there's a lot of red, which is 20% or more. And then it kind of the gradation goes back to green, which is like, you know, from 0 to 5, I think. And you can see this is a blow up kind of the town center area. And then the one underneath here is basically the high to low elevations. So that,
give us a definition of the town center. What do you consider?
Well, maybe that's not the right name. Maybe you can tell me. That's the first thing you correct me on.
Are you considering City Hall at the bottom of the slopes?
Yeah, all the property of the city. Yeah, let's go back to that map.
Are you considering it from Town Hall down to Buckeye?
Okay, so this area, the town ownership map is all this property in green here. And what this includes, this is the road coming in.
Right.
Beech Mountain Parkway, the town hall is right here. Okay, and then adjacent to the sliding hill where all the public works are located, they control all that, except for, there's a little hole in the donut. This is owned by a local family, which is the mini storage, y'all may use it. But pretty much everything in that area there. So that's kind of what I'm referring to is the, now, would you prefer another name? Because, you know.
No,
yeah, okay, because that's true. Correct me if there's better nomenclature that we can use on things.
You're not
That's important.
including the ski village then?
No, we've been asked to study the entire town because there's this kind of symbiotic relationship between the ski resort and the town center. And one of the things we did here is like, it'd be great if you could actually walk to it, or, an easier way to get there except for just one way in and one way out. Are there other connections? We've even talked about things like, early on, people were saying, can we do a gondola? Things like that. So we're tossing out ideas and hearing a lot of different things. Okay, one more question, but I want to keep moving, or we'll be,
The confusion may be that you're talking about a town plaza in this development potentially happening, and that area you've got highlighted as public works. So maybe public works would be a better definition of that area. 'Cause
Okay.
that's what's there,
yeah,
in the
okay.
parking lot.
Yeah, great. That's perfect. You'll see what, I'm gonna talk a lot about those in a few minutes. Public Works, okay. Let's go back. I'm going the wrong way here, hang on. Okay. Okay, this is a blow up area of the Public Works area. Okay? And the Public Works area along, with the town hall right here. And, this is the, very obvious Pinnacle, housing. And the sledding hill is here. Okay, so we studied it in plan in terms of slopes and, high to low elevations. We also, we do section cuts through. And a cut through means basically we're looking at the profile, like the silhouette of the land and how it steps down, how it slopes, what's there. And so we did a section cut through the Public Works, across the sledding hill, over to this road, I can't remember the name.
Parkwood.
Elderberry, yeah, I should have known, sorry, elders. And then the section cut here from the Pinnacle, the top of the Pinnacle, all the way across right next to the town hall. And so those sections look like this, which are pretty interesting. You're looking, let me just go back to this. You're kind of looking from left to right, or from top to, from north to south, if that makes sense. And you can see this is where like the sledding hill area, and this is Public Works. That's probably one of the Public Works buildings, like, where the mini storage is. And then it slopes down and crosses over the street. Parkway is here. No, there's another road there, and the Parkway, I think, is here, and then this takes you across. That's the town hall. And then this one is the Pinnacle at the top, and then how it steps down this way and across over. No, I'm sorry, this is the town, I'm sorry, correct me, see, I'm confused too, we should label these. But just in generally speaking, you can see there are, it's kind of terraces that go down because it has been reshaped so that they, Public Works can use it for these big buildings and parking and stuff like that. And so and that's a classic way to develop is, the terrace planning, like Italian hill towns are that way, they step down that way. So it's interesting. So we'll be using these probably in July. Now, how many people have seen this map before? Okay. This is kind of like really kind of at this point, it's like, it's like historically famous. Like, wow, here's the famous original plan of, that the resort development company put together, the map. And it was done by Willard and Bird Associates out of Atlanta. They probably had a great run of designing resort communities. Most of them, have golf courses. In some cases, other things like ski slopes or lakes and that type of thing. And so this era in the 1960s was kind of the beginning of saying, yeah, boy, we got all these cars now, we can drive anywhere we want to go, let's just spread out, and let's go to places that were hard to get to before, because now they're not, and they're all beautiful, and we love to be there. So all of a sudden these resort properties happen, and this is a really amazing one with the Beech Mountain ski resort, and then all the things they did with Land of Oz and all the other amenities, and you know, it's an amazing, you know, place. It's a resort, highly amenitized, beautiful views, great places to live, and you know, this kind of system of roads that basically terraces down all the topography in a very kind of naturalistic way, you know, running the ridge line, running parallel. It's quite interesting. And so if you look at what's built, this is your aerial view map. And what we did is we overlaid them together. You can't really see, this is kind of grayed out, but pretty much that map is what was done, except for a few places. You know, I mean, for the most part, it just basically follows. So they basically implemented this amazing, huge project. And so there's been a great run of these types of resort communities across the United States. They're famous ones that y'all probably know. A lot of them kind of came from the culture of Hilton Head. Y'all know Hilton Head? Okay, Hilton Head, you know, did the first kind of golf course communities, and then the Urban Land Institute developers basically replicated them across the country as a development model, selling, you know, property on golf courses. And basically these have been hugely successful. And then so they were so successful, then the planning world said, gee, why don't we just do this everywhere? Okay, and so there were some unintended consequences. So I'll talk about those in a second. But before that time, think about how places were formed. They were formed more at a walkable scale, and they were also connected more to the land. In the case of when you fly over older places that haven't really grown, there are these nice kind of compact towns and villages, and they're surrounded by agrarian agriculture, farming, but also natural areas, woodlands, and so forth. And of course, when you hit the mountains, they kind of morph in shape because of the topography. Causes them to stretch out or go up the hills. But here are like 3 or 4 towns or villages, and you would leave the town square in one. You would go out and you travel to the next one, and then you would arrive at the next one. And every time you went from one to the other, there was a sense of arrival. And also when you were traveling through them, you were going through nature or agriculture. So it was kind of this really nice balance, you know, in terms of how you did it, you know, how you experienced that. And so your resort, this kind of planned community was quite revolutionary. And again, the unintended consequences is that, like, let's just do this everywhere, and that's where basically the origins of suburban sprawl happened. This is an aerial view of Orlando, Florida, but you know, Orange County, California. This is kind of the unadulterated version of suburbia, where it said, let's just all spread out, and basically the unintended consequences are what? What do y'all? Infrastructure, right. When you spread out, there's a lot more pipe and wires and everything else that you've got to support it with. What else? What? Traffic. Yeah, you go from Atlanta, some of y'all probably, Atlanta, I live in Charlotte, you know, I stay in a little bubble in town, but you know, all around us, there's traffic everywhere. And so basically, the romance of the car and the liberation of the automobile suddenly became a ball and chain. That basically you couldn't do anything at all without, you know, getting in your car. And so there was starting to be this kind of cracks in the fissure, and fissures in the 1980s. And the reasons were because of what I just described. And here are a couple of diagrams to explain it. I like to do these doodles, kind of explaining things. The upper half is one model, the lower half is another model. But remember the aerial photograph I showed you with a series of villages set in the natural and nature and landscape? And you can see a lot of them were like, you know, cities that have multiple neighborhoods that are walkable with their town centers and their community, you know, community services and so forth within a short walk or a, you know, easy to get to short drive. And as your cities and towns would grow, you would grow in the increments of these walkable neighborhoods. So you would have larger cities, smaller towns, even villages. And the suburban version of that was just saying, well, let's just don't worry about that anymore because we can just drive everywhere. So everything just kind of came out as this kind of ooze. It kind of oozed out, and a lot of the natural areas and open space almost, became almost residual and neglected because of that. Another way to explain it is that when we used to grow, up until the 1950s, when a city said we need to grow, they said, okay, let's grow in the increment of neighborhoods. They would plan the next neighborhood, and they would lay out the public services. They would include civic groups that have, reserved sites for libraries and post offices and churches and community buildings and so forth. And basically the infrastructure, and do it in a way, and basically you would have a holistic neighborhood. What happened in the 1950s is that the ingredients that make up a neighborhood, where people live, where people work, where people shop, where people gather, basically they came out one ingredient at a time. So the housing came out as the housing subdivisions, the workplace came out as a suburban office park, the shopping came out as a shopping mall or the strip shopping center, and basically the community services like the schools, the post offices, the libraries, all became these big boxes on the side of the highway. Fire stations and so forth, just kind of sitting out there. And so, connected by a large arterial, and so when people say about suburbia, I'm talking about other places, like, Atlanta and Charlotte, some of the large metropolitan areas, say, oh, they just lost their sense of place. There's no there. You've heard those terms before. It's because they never have a chance to coalesce in anything. They never add up to a place. They're just kind of strewn out there, and so you end up driving a lot. You end up driving for everything. So if you look at one of these, kind of an idea of a walkable community versus a drive everywhere community, you can kind of see, these. You can kind of recognize these. Let's look at the bottom part. Here's the housing subdivision. Here's the suburban office park. Here's the shopping, the mall, also the big boxes on the side of the road. And then here's the school and other community buildings on the side of the road. So if you live in this neighborhood and you want to do anything, you have to drive out to the arterial and collector road and then drive down that to do, go to work, take your kids to school, go shopping, just to buy a quart of milk, right? That kind of thing. You have to hit the arterial. So what happens in the suburbia is just like you said, traffic. All those cars are hitting that road. And there's a statistics in metropolitan areas, every single household generates 13.7 car trips a day. 13.7 car trips. And you say, oh, that can't be true. You think about all the things you do. You get in your car and you're driving like 4 errands. They're all in your car. If there are other people in the household, they're doing the same thing. If you have adult children, they're doing whatever, other family members, friends, it's all done that way. And so if they're all hitting this collector road, that's why everything gets jammed up. So everybody's competing for asphalt and also competing for what else? Parking, right? Parking, competing for parking. And so our public works and town center area and town hall area, you compete for parking there, right? Because you want that spot right out in front of the front door of the pizza place, right? Now, as opposed to the traditional walkable community, traditional town, the ingredients are the same. You can see the 4 ingredients here. It's just that they're more connected together. There's an internal network of thoroughfares, streets and roads, sometimes even rear lanes and alleys, and then trails, sidewalks. There are lots of ways of getting around, and because there's so many streets, they can be smaller scale, and they also can be like a lot safer, like kid friendly. In these neighborhoods, we say, yeah, these are free range kids. You don't have to drive them everywhere. You don't have to take them to school. They can walk or bike because the school's at the edge of the neighborhood, in the middle of the neighborhood. And you can get things, if you're If you don't like driving on major highways, and you just wanna basically drive in and go shopping to the main street or the town square, it's easy. A lot of it is in walking distance, so if you don't like to drive, or you've got a golf cart or whatever, those work perfectly great on smaller, skinny streets. And then the workplace can do the same thing. If you use this model, and it's not the case here so much, but this is kind of the general theory, but you can reduce the car trips by 1/3 to 2/3 car trips, so 13.7. You can really reduce that down simply by connectivity. So one of the things we always try to do when we look at places is how can we connect more? Where are the possible connections? And we spent yesterday looking around, saying, oh yeah, there's a way we could get a second, way to get through from here to here. Oh, there's this, we always wanted to extend this trail over here. It's just we've got these fragments and segments that just don't add up. So, how can we do that? So those are the kind of things we're hoping to work on. Now, so how did I come to know all this? Well, in 1983, some really kind of creative people, architects, named Giovanni and Plater Zyberg, worked with a town founder. That's what we call people that are developers that want to do a walkable neighborhood. And they actually planned and designed the first new town for the last 70 years. No one had done that because everyone had embraced more of the suburban model. And they said, there were some things that were pretty good about these walkable towns that we just threw out the window when we started doing these suburban communities. And so they recreated a walkable town on the Panhandle of Florida called Seaside. Has anybody heard of Seaside? Seaside, okay. And he rolls his eyes. I see the left side. Okay. Well, it was like they used it for the set of the Truman Show movie.
I've lived in Boca Raton for 45 years.
Okay.
I'm very familiar with South Florida.
Okay. So do you know Giovanni and Plater Zyberg?
Pardon?
That's Andres Giovanni and Elizabeth Plater Zyberg. They're the two people that designed it.
I've heard of it.
They're Miami based. Yeah. And they've done projects up in like Palm Beach and Vero Beach, that area. So they basically created the first. Now this is a resort. It's a really, really successful resort. In fact, the property values have gone up so much that people just said, no, this is like impossible. But it's not a resort community; it's a resort town. So a resort town, and resort towns means that basically it's on the model of those historic walkable places that started off as something else. Like a lot of old fishing villages became resort towns, like Nantucket, those types of places. And because they're so livable, and people want to be there, they ultimately evolved into a resort where they may have started out as just a simple little, like for example the mining towns that turned into like all the ski resorts like Telluride and Aspen and all the other ones. They started off as mining towns, and then over time they changed. So they learned a lot, and because this was so interesting and people were so excited about it, and so Living magazine started publishing, Coastal Living, is that it just took off, and that was where I landed at the beginning of my career, right at the beginning of this. And so we've been planning these all over the place for the last 20, 30 years. This is what Seaside looks like. You can probably recognize some of these pictures of houses with the towers. You can see the views out of the ocean and so forth. These are live work small shops that you live above. This is a little artisan village that's kind of embedded in the plan. The artisan village is right here in the plan. And then here's the town square, and then you can see this is a really nice walkable distance. In fact, if you look, here's the plan, and this is a walking radius, a 5-minute walking radius. 5-minute walking radius is about 1/4 mile on flat land. Okay, like I said, when you work in topography, the 1/4 mile may turn into a long oblong circle, where the. But that's obvious. It's obvious you do that, But within the 5-minute walk, basically it's got all these ingredients, and
So basically, it followed the European river cities. Because that's
European-
river towns.
Rivertown.
Yeah, all the towns along the rivers in Europe,
Okay.
exactly like
So you've
that.
done one of those Viking cruises recently?
No, I didn't do
Oh,
that.
yeah, that's where you see those. People love visiting them. And of course, you can do them in the Mediterranean, you can do them, yeah, you can do them all in Germany. I mean, just they're everywhere. And they're a little, you can do a little bit of that in the US. All right, so, but okay, so I just want to show one thing here. If you actually took the same program of Seaside in terms of the number of this and that, and arranged it how you would typically do in terms of zoning codes, you would do it like this. You would do segregated pods of different things. You would have a pod of affordable housing with the apartment complex. That's that kind of suburban model with the big parking lots all around the buildings. You know, I kind of refer to that as the train wreck plan. It's just, you know, there's no kind of like organization to it. It's just like, where can I put in parking lots? And then you have your starter housing with its, you know, entrance off the Collector Road, smaller lots, smaller houses, the move-up housing, you know, larger houses, and then the kind of executive housing, which are the, you know, the biggest lots or the biggest homes, all with their own entrances. In some cases, you have security gates. You know, some cases you have fake security gates. You know, it's just basically you're selling a real estate price point, which, you know, is, you know, the realtors understand that you have to protect your price point. And then you have the downsizing, you know, condos, and then basically where you shop comes in the form usually a shopping, you know, strip shopping center that has a parking lot out front, and the amenities are usually pretty sparse. There may be like a clubhouse and a pool, but things like, you know, there's no civic use of libraries, post office, that kind of stuff. That's somewhere else. And then and the other thing you typically do is a lot of the really primo development blocks everybody else's view off from it. So there may be a lot of high value to these condos that have, you know, the front on the amenity, whether it's water or views, but everybody behind it basically is, and that's where your property values really drop off significantly. They call this, in the development industry, they call that the quick kill lots, because that's where they make all their money. So, but what we figured out is that you can build an incredible amount of value back in neighborhoods if there's a system of connections and the amenities are protected and are made, you know, made public to the rest of the community. So the idea of extending streets back. So if you live in the back of the neighborhood, you step on your front porch, you look down the street, you have the view too. Everybody gets the view. Everybody's connected to the amenity, and basically that's how Seaside blew the charts off the property values. They've increased over 1,000%, 1,300%, I think, over 11 years, something like that. It started off as an artist and school teachers, cottage community, but again, scarcity and just the desirability just drove the prices up. Now, if you took all of these small, medium, and large lots and this kind of, you know, more dense buildings and so forth, and then mixed them together on a system of streets and blocks, that's exactly what this is. It's the same amount, but it's basically organized differently. And this kind of, we see the residual open space, which are the berms and buffers between each of the pods and the main arterial, which is noxious. So you want to buffer yourself from it. Sorry. That always happens too. So, but anyway, if you do that, basically, if you collect them together, you can create small public greens and squares. So this is the town green, and these are all pocket parks that people use. They have a use their function, and also to put, you know, homes front on those. And we found just like on a little a green that's the size of this room increases the value of the lots by usually like 30%, simply because you have that kind of amenity. Just things like that we learn along the way. Those are the kind of tools we want to talk to you about. All right, so do you understand the difference? Starting to get a little bit of feel for what we're talking about. Now, how does that relate to beach? We don't know that yet, but we're going to do some scale comparisons. And one of those is saying, okay, here's Public Works, here's the town hall, and here's a 5-minute walking radius. You see how far it goes? It goes from the town hall all the way up the sledding hill to basically where they have their truck wash. That's, what building is that? That's
Public Works.
That's Public Works building, the new Public Works building, you're the old Public Works building. And then you have, I think there's a little pocket park down here, Memorial Park. And also the sledding hill, and also the overflow parking. And then, these, the famous restaurants, Fred's and the pizza place, and what's in it. And you have a lot of other stuff on the other side just because, I'm drawing a perfect circle, but it's topography that really, it's probably more like this. All right, now, just as a scale comparison, you took the entire town of Seaside. It fits on half of that circle. It fits on the one side of the road where Public Works is. So I just want you to understand how much land you have here. If you actually sharpen your pencil and design it in a way that really takes advantage of it, you can have a phenomenal town center, like a real place that really complements everything else you have here.
No, it doesn't.
Hmm?
No, it doesn't. Because from where you're talking about town and connecting, especially in our winter season, okay? And when we have the most congestion up here of cars.
Right.
People park up there and then use, you see the skiway area down below it?
Right.
All that area?
Yeah.
They are transversing that with their skis, their snowboards.
Right.
And trying to get to the ski resort.
Right.
Because there's no parking around the ski resort.
Right.
And there's no.
There's no connection.
No connections,
Yeah.
and the village back in the 1960s and 70s was very apropos, and had lots of shops there too, but it wasn't sustainable,
Right.
okay? So here we have all of this, and you're saying you can fit all of that in there? I
From a
mean,
scale point of view, I'm just showing you as a scale comparison. This is not what we're gonna do. This is just saying, just look at the scale of how much land you have. And there's opportunities for future connections going through. It's not gonna look like this at all. Let me keep going, I'm gonna show you other examples, okay? All right, so this is just a exercise in terms of scale. And what I want to show you is, if you talk about a walkable, community, where are some other places that actually, these are naturally occurring? Because most of them were built before the 1950s. Back when we were doing, it was just a natural way of actually creating place. And so some of the ones that people point us to right around here are places like West Jefferson. Can you see these okay? So these are aerial views, and the downtown of West Jefferson is about, I don't know, it's like, they're long blocks, so like 4 long blocks, it's really like 8 blocks. Okay, this is a 5-minute walk from edge to center, or a 10-minute walk from one end of the shopping district to the other. Okay, that's West Jefferson. All right, this is, here's Banner Elk. Here's the large, very large green in downtown Banner, but it also includes that whole grouping of restaurants. We had dinner last night. It's very charming, walking around through there, and and we understand it's incredibly popular because kids love it. They're safe, and everybody loves to sit indoor, outdoor, and all that type of stuff. And there's a lot of choice. You can park once, not even know which place you're going to have dinner at. Just let's go there and figure out what we're going to do. And sometimes people scatter, get different food, and then come back together. So it's like we know this. It's a strolling district. That's what that's a new term. And we're going to create a strolling district. So that's Banner Elk. This is Blowing Rock. Now you people say, "Wow, we don't want to be Blowing Rock." Okay, that's fine. I'm just showing you as an example. Blowing Rock, the big green they have in the middle, and their entire main street is a 5-minute walk. So it's another strolling district. Why people love going there. They'll spend 2 or 3 hours just kind of, meandering around. And then also, here's over here on the right is beach. Just kind of so you can see the scale. The other one I put in is actually a mountain village that I designed called Cheshire. in Black Mountain, the village of Cheshire. Does anyone ever heard of that or been there? How far away is Black Mountain from here? Hour and a half, 2 hours, okay. All right, if you drive down 40 to Black Mountain, you usually get off and you go kind of towards Montreat, right? It's old Highway 9, it's old Highway 9. All right, if you go the other direction off of Highway 9, headed towards Chimney Rock. Okay, you just go a mile down the road and the village of Cheshire is right on Highway 9. Highway 9 was an old, high-speed, rural highway that everybody was racing up and down because it was the one straight section. The rest of it is like, you know, this. But basically we were able to tame, I call it tame the highway and turn it into a village main street. We put in sidewalks, we put in on-street parking, we planted street trees, we carved out a little village green, we put in little shops on the model of Biltmore Village, you know, there's houses in Biltmore Village. And we also did a whole bunch of little small streets that are connected together and built lots of different kinds of housing. Beautiful big homes, some medium houses, cottages. We even have tree houses on the steep slope. I'll show you, they're incredible, they're incredibly popular. You have some of those here actually, by the way, the tall skinny houses. And also some more dense stuff like townhouses. So very successful. Again, it became the model for the Asheville area in terms of, you know, how to, and also the architecture is beautiful because we work with them on that. So anyway, that's a good new version you can see. And then we put in another one. Some people, I don't know if y'all know Pinehurst, Pinehurst Village, Pinehurst Village, historic village at Pinehurst. It's part of, it was original plan, and it was designed by the Olmsteads, you know, Frederick Olmsted, and they did a village, and then next to a large oval green that has a civic building in the center of the library. And then of course, there's, you know, I don't know how many golf courses out beyond that. But the village itself is, you know, basically where everyone goes. That's there. It has a theater, it has a grocery store, you know, a gourmet grocer. It has some small inns. There's 2 or 3 really nice inns there, hotels, and you know, and other things. Anyway, we wanted to put in a golf course, you know. Now, one more scale comparison. This is the Public Works here. See, here's Public Works buildings, here's the old Public Works, here's the parking lot, this is the recycling center in the center, here's that row of mini storage buildings, pump. All right, I think this is kind of interesting. This is a 5-minute walk from end to end, from one side to the other, as opposed to the center radius. This is 1 block of Blowing Rock. And it's amazing when I think, look at this and say, look, it's the same length as your mini storage farm. That's what you've got up there. You've got like a whole block of, you know, Main Street, just where the mini storage is located. All right, also, you know, the restaurant row block in Banner Elk, you know, and the large green and the buildings out beyond that's the old school, I think. Is that an old school? Yeah. And I mentioned this yesterday. It's a beautiful green, but you know, it kind of the buildings back up to it on the other side. The school's great, but you know, it's kind of like the back of the parking lot for this little village. And you know, you have to kind of figure that stuff out. So you know, you actually try to take advantage of everything you can. And then here's West Jefferson, 2 blocks of West Jefferson. You know, that long, and then also this is Pinehurst Village, which is very organic. And here's some pictures. That's Pinehurst. You know, this is Banner Elk. This is West Jefferson. This is Blowing Rock, and then this is your Public Works. Okay. I just put that in there to say, just you know, just imagine what we can do here. Now, the other thing that we talked about is everybody. What we've heard so far is there's not enough to do here, and there are not enough places to go places to eat and to dine and to hang out. You know, Fred's is famous, you know. I've hung out at Fred's already. That's your third, I think, Kate, you used the term third place. Y'all know what third place means? There was a famous guy wrote a book called The Great Good Place. His name was Ray Oldenburg. He was a sociologist, I think, at Florida Central, I think. You can order a copy, it's like $9. and it's called The Great Good Place, and the premise of it was, this is like a thesis, a PhD, it said, everybody needs a third place besides work and home to help get them through the day. Right? Yeah, and it can be your pickleball group, or it can be, you know, hanging out at Fred's in the morning, you know, or the local bar. You know, breweries, kind of breweries are making fortunes now, because they're a lot of people's third place. And he says that you can go in and let your hair down, or in my case, and either hang out with friends or even strangers, because those kind of places, you know, it's just like they're naturally, you know, conducive to that. And so, I think that's what you know, people talk about. We need more here, you know, third places, you know, and for everybody, for kids, for grown-ups, for, you know, young and old, and everybody, introverts, extroverts, active people, you know, inactive people, just everything, you know, and also ways for people to get there. That's convenient. So if you look at those strolling, this is something I did. I just went on Google Maps and I just put in restaurants at Banner Elk, and of course all these little things pop up, and then you click on them, and you can't really see them here, I don't think, but you know, you can barely see it in yellow. That in all these little clusters, like, you know, like at least a dozen places pop up. And then if you do beach, there are three. There's Fred's, and there's I think this is the
Around town.
yeah, and then pizza place. I think that, you know, those three. Yes.
Why do you think that is?
We're trying to find that. We're trying to figure that out.
Just curious.
Seasonality.
We've heard some theories. Okay.
Seasonability.
Well, yeah, there are things that, you know, so back to the meetings we're having, we have this guy that's done this incredible market research and using AI and everything. He's gonna explain with numbers why that is, okay? And that's gonna be really interesting. So you're all welcome to come to that meeting. Some of the stuff's gonna be really technical, but I think you'll find a lot of really fascinating. Yeah.
Can I make a comment? I've lived on Beech Mountain permanently for 15 years. Had a home behind Fred's, as a matter of fact,
Oh.
since
Oh,
1987.
good. We want to come knock on your door then.
Well, and I'm very familiar with what I call the city dump. And in my career, I spent 10 years in a very large financial institution lending $100 million a month for 10 years. Became a real estate developer in South Florida, and I built from Vero Beach to Miami.
Okay.
Some of the biggest projects, office buildings, shopping centers.
Okay.
And the very first thing, as a banker and as a developer myself, what's the first thing? Location, location,
Yeah.
location. And until you've either loaned money or invested money and borrowed money and done some of this stuff, if you don't recognize what your quote market is, accessibility, infrastructure and all, and forget having to spend $5 or $6, $7, $8 million to move the dump, which somebody's gotta pay for. You probably need to at least take into consideration in your analysis, what do I want to succeed with here?
All right.
It's not a white elephant. If you
Aaron,
don't
you
get the
listen to
right
this?
thing up, it'll be a white elephant.
Yeah. Aaron, stand up. You can just wave your hand.
Say the question again, please.
He's just saying, he's basically saying we need to back up all of our ideas with data.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's his job. He's gonna,
Statistical analysis is
Okay.
this.
yeah,
If you don't have all of those parameters covered, you're gonna have a white elephant. I don't care what you do there. Because there's your little park of walking around there, people gotta drive to walk. Because there's not enough housing and all around. I mean, it just doesn't exist. And I know I live within 100 yards of it, 200 yards of it.
One thing, you're right, and I'll share this data with y'all tomorrow. One thing that's two things that are really important to understand. First, from the market standpoint, we're really looking at a number of things from really commercial and dining, retail and dining, as well as housing. So we're not looking at things like, maybe, a park or anything
Well,
like
you're
that.
talking mixed-use projects is what you're talking about in
I'm
reality.
talking about private investment coming in, commercial and residential. The second thing that's really important is, the market for the businesses here in this community is not just the residents of this community. It's obviously visitors, but the local market as well is really the greater Beech Mountain area. So they really feed some of the demand for the opportunity for business growth in our core area as well. So it's not, because you're right, there's not a whole lot of full-time homeowners here.
I think we've got 300 families up here.
Exactly, you're
And that's
exactly
not
right.
enough to support some humongous development.
You're exactly right.
You're not
The
gonna
data
get an
doesn't show
investor
that
in
either.
it, you're not gonna get a lender to lend money for it. And if you get lucky and you do, for lack of a better word,
Well,
you still don't have the quote.
Couldn't agree with you more. That's exactly why we're doing the market research. And again, just keep in mind that it's not just those 681 people or so that live in the town full-time. It's the local market, it's that expanded local market as well.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, I've sat here for an
I
hour
hear
and
what you're
I've
saying.
looked at stuff in South Florida that I'm very familiar with. That's like comparing a rock to a grain of sand.
I'm looking at your
you know?
market. I'm not looking at Florida or Charlotte or anything like that. I'm looking at the Beech Mountain market.
Well,
Let's keep
why are
going.
we sitting here listening to all of this stuff when we should be talking about reality?
We are.
None of this is
What
reality.
time is your presentation, Aaron? It's tomorrow, correct?
Tomorrow at,
11.
Okay, can you come to that tomorrow at 11?
Yeah, if we're gonna talk about reality.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like I'm sitting here in a daydream.
Okay, good,
It's a
that's
fantasy
fine.
world. Everything you talked about right now, none of it would work.
Okay, you're right. It has to be calibrated to Beech Mountain. And it's gonna be different from anything I'm showing today. I'm gonna keep going. We can have questions at the end, but I
I
wanna
just
make
want,
sure.
real quickly,
Okay,
continue what you're doing. I've been here since 1978, okay? I've seen a lot of this go on. I'm not a developer. I didn't do millions of dollars worth of project, but this is my mountain. I wanna hear what they have to say, because I'm interested in how this mountain gets developed.
Well,
And it's gonna get developed, okay? They're not gonna stop that. I'm not gonna stop it, nobody else is. I wanna manage that, and that's why I'm here.
Well, that's why I'm here too, sir. With all due respect.
so tomorrow at 1?
11.
Okay. All right, just an example, so I just want to show you some examples, which are not Beech Mountain. But anyway, the idea is like, again, if you want to talk about walkability, what does it look like? There's some really interesting things. This is the village of Cheshire in Black Mountain. Here's their little shops. These are like, it's like, they do look like Biltmore Village a little bit. We worked really hard to emulate that. These are townhouses, here's a community park. These are, this is called a pocket neighborhood. These are a small number of cottages around a shared green without a street out in front. And this is great for, if you have a family with kids, they can just, it's kind of a common area. It's also great for people who are downsizing and want to cut their grass and take care of a big yard, they can share the green together. There are kind of these specialty types of housing that you don't have. You have a lot of really nice large lots. You have a lot of different kinds of houses and different sizes, but it's all single family for the most part, and a few apartments. We're staying in one of the apartments of Airbnb and so forth. But anyway, there's some interesting things. There's some kind of like, we do like what's missing that people might like, and then you kind of design it that way. This is a resort town on a big lake in Oklahoma, Nowhere, Oklahoma. It's basically, these are kind of these nice little, these are cottages, these are some bigger homes, and we even do these kind of green streets. In the case of this out here, it's designed as a boardwalk that takes you down to the lake. Everybody feels like they're, at the beach, even though they maybe live 2 blocks back. And then the town center has a, kind of nice mixed-use building. I'm just showing you these examples. This is in Beaufort, South Carolina. Y'all have heard of the village of Habersham? It's right across the Broad River from Hilton Head. You haven't heard of it? Okay, good. Yeah, it's one of my favorite places. They've got a 2.5 block on Main Street that's in the middle of nowhere. that they figured out actually how to do a merchandising plan with a retail component that actually is working really well, because it's all destination retail versus just like you have to have 10,000 car trips to go by so you can attract the Subway sandwich shop. You know, they're not, you know, chain stores and all that stuff. That's not this, but it succeeded. You can see the homes are very nice. They're different sizes, and there's lots of open space. Here's some more pictures of it. They have a post office at the end of Main Street where everyone hangs out. That's their third place. They come get their mail, they meet their friends. You know, there's a share library in it. There's all the notifications. Right next to it is the pub. So after work, people come, they get their mail, and then they go over and hang out at the pub. There's a coffee shop, and then there's a cheese shop, and then there are 3 price point tier restaurants. And it's a lot smaller than Beach. So there are ways you can do it. This is the historic village of Pinehurst. See how it is like this little walkable cluster? It's kind of reminds me of Banner Elk a little bit. And these beautiful historic buildings and shops, really nice human scale. And of course, they do have big facilities. All right, so those are some examples that are kind of new resort towns. And then there's some famous old towns, old resort towns, ski resort towns that you could look at as models as well, including Park City, Vail, Telluride, and Aspen. And so what we said, okay, well, how big are they, you know? And so if you look at them, they're actually different sizes. I think this is, oh gosh, I can't read. This is the one that's in, I'm trying to think, who from Hill Studios? Can you tell me which one this is, David?
One of the ski towns?
Yeah, that's in Vermont.
Carter, is that in Burlington?
Oh, that's
Stowe.
Vermont. That's Stowe, okay, that's Stowe. It's really small. I was like shocked. And then this is, this might be.
Carter, you help me.
No, okay. The guy that did this with Hill's not here. It's either Telluride, Aspen, or Vail, okay? Or Park City. I don't think it's Park City.
It's not Aspen.
I believe no, it's got the room.
So, yeah, okay.
Carter,
Telluride maybe?
Yeah.
Definitely not Aspen.
No,
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
No, there's Dan.
It's bad.
Yeah, that's a
Dan.
Dan.
Oh, it might be.
Yeah, that one's Van.
Okay.
So Stowe and Van, Big
Okay.
City, Bill
All right.
Van.
Here's we made
Vail
it
is up.
here.
Yeah.
Okay. It's very organic. And, but a lot of these are these old kind of grid towns, you know, these kind of western towns, started off as cowboy towns, mining towns. And they just, because of scale, they're small little buildings, just like, you know, the towns around here. And they're all walkable, and of course, some of them are, you know, really city sized. You know, they have a lot, and of course, not much plaza, but they're really interesting, because the one thing they do have in common is a strolling district, where people just wanna go hang out. And then here's some views of them. You know, these are kind of like character views. And they do have, I think at one point early on, there was a barbarian theme here. You know, that's actually hip again. You know, it's come back, which is a lot of fun. And also there are things like, I think this might be Telluride. They designed the Main Street as the terminated vista right on the mountain peak. And I keep thinking about, you know, Beech Mountain pinnacle here, and the fact that we've got this big public works facility across the street. So actually, when you're walking, if you're strolling, you're looking. You know, if you're looking right at it, wouldn't that be cool? I mean, you want to celebrate who you are. So just don't throw some random, you know, plan down. Come up with something that really, we have to design it 3-dimensionally. We can't do it on paper. We have to get a stand, and then we have to get a compass and say, okay, this is where we need to orient these things, and then also where we need to connect the trails and that type of thing. So it could be really interesting. And here's some other ones: Park City, Vail, Telluride, Aspen. You know, and they have things like gondolas and, you know, all sorts of fun stuff. So, and some of them have some pretty good topography for sure. And then there's some other local things. We started doing some architectural character. We didn't get very far, but the ones we did do are more documenting the more historic places that have been around really for a long time, like Highlands, and Flat Rock, research in terms of architecture, you know, were things like, you know, bark shingles, chestnut bark shingles and stuff like the Osceola Lodge. But you can't do that anymore. Y'all have every kind of architecture here, by the way, every kind. You know? So it's like, which is really interesting. I was looking forward to it. What's that? Yeah, it's personality. You have this incredible personality here, variety. You don't want everything to look the same, right? And it definitely doesn't. I mean, I was like, wow, did you see that one? You know, it's like, it's a lot of fun. All right, so we have all these ideas. We have a lot of projects, and so we're gonna bring that knowledge, but we need to hear from you all. There are things we've done though, like we have an incredible illustrator here. He does this kind of stuff, and in this case, this was like a big suburban interchange that basically went bankrupt, and so like retrofitting all these buildings and turning it into a town center, a walkable town center. You reposition your market. You reposition your market. I'm almost finished.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. And so just, you know, these are just kind of like to help you, you know, see the possibilities. But this doesn't relate that much. There are other things that we do. Like we were trying to figure out, well, if we need a gas station, how do you do it? And he said, well, it's always these big ugly pumps out front. So, but why don't we do what we call gas backwards? Let's do a gas backwards, and turn it around, and put the corner store out front, right? I mean, it's as simple as, and there are places like Davidson, North Carolina, that basically where they've developed, they've expanded their town. That's what they did. They have a gas station out. You know, have you ever been there? There's a roundabout you come to, and they have a gas backwards gas station. You know? So just things like that, you know. And also like when you just do like a boring box, you know, with parking all around it. You know, you can retrofit it. You can sprout wings that come out to the sidewalk, and then in between that can be a third place gathering space. You know, and you can reprogram with all sorts of things like, you know, just embellish it with gardens and energy and all sorts of, you know, transit stops and hangouts and all sorts of things you can do. This isn't what we're talking about here, but just I'm saying we have all sorts of ideas. And we want to hear from you. And you can do you can do like just the old simple large lot house, large lot with a small house on it, and you want to grow it. How do you grow it? Do you just, you know, go out the back and you're dropping, you know, 50 feet, so that's, you know, possible? Or do you actually, can you step out front instead of just having parking out front? Can it grow wings? Can it actually reach out and actually connect to a walking area? That, and all of a sudden, like, there's a porch, and then you start talking to your neighbors more. There are things like that, you know, there's kind of things we can do to actually create more, you know, connections with, you know, stuff. But this may not, I don't think this is necessarily that appropriate here. They're just ideas like that. And when we hear ideas, what we try to do is, okay, that's a crazy idea, but let's draw it up anyway. And test it. And sometimes with and we always say, sometimes the best ideas come out of the craziest ideas. So now we're at the point in our process where we're throwing everything up in the air, and we don't know where it's going to land. So that's what we need you all for, is help us do that. So that's where we are. That's our presentation today. Now we can have questions. You were here ready to go.
Yeah, so, and maybe you talked about this, I came in late, but the elephant in the room is our water. How are we gonna support, where's the water coming from? What's the infrastructure for our utilities?
I should have had, well, all right, so we have a series of meetings, and that's one of them.
It's 11 today.
Today, 11. Basically after this meeting. And so we're gonna be talking about infrastructure, water, sewer, storm sewer, you know, roads, paving, trails, transmission lines.
Are you also
Yeah.
taking into consideration this other huge development that's probably gonna happen in Wallace area?
Other huge developments that are gonna happen where?
On this property up here.
On the property up here.
Yeah.
we are aware, we are aware of some of them, but we keep hearing there are others, like somebody, oh, this person owns this one commercial property, is thinking about renovating. Can we talk with them too? And we're like, yeah, we wanna hear from everyone. So if you know of anything going on that you don't think, or something, let us know if we need to talk to somebody. We are talking to people already.
You ever look at the original, promotion for Beech Mountain with Carolina Caribbean? There's old videos on that.
Oh, no, do you have some?
And I should have them in the museum.
Yeah,
they're at the museum.
Yeah, they're
Okay,
at the
so
museum.
when are you open? I've been by there
Yeah.
twice.
Oh, we don't open till mid-June.
Season.
I'll open it up for you.
I
Thank you,
can show you the
Jim.
pictures I have that I took through the window.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
You have to wait till July.
All right, now, one of the things we wanna do is, that's like, the history museum is fantastic.
But-
Why don't we make that a huge feature of what we're gonna do?
And the reason of that advertisement and how it went out is still the reason why people come up here.
Yeah,
Okay?
okay.
It is the vastness of nature.
Yeah.
It is the open air concept, which COVID totally took us by surprise,
Yeah.
because we were inundated. I mean,
Yeah.
inundated.
A lot of
We
places.
couldn't keep the grocery store stocked, which was far beyond what we had ever expected, okay? They could walk around, they had our natural trails that they loved because it went by the creek. It was gonna take several years for us to reconstruct after the leaves, okay?
Right.
All right? So we have a walkability on this mountain. Even though we're 1/3 acre apart, we have a feeling of community. We have a feeling of activities that people are astonished at. I mean, people that are even, summer residents come up, I haven't done everything I wanted to do up here. Okay, so it's not that we're lacking any of that. What we're lacking more than anything else is a connectability to control our infrastructure of road and water.
Okay.
Okay, to
Are you
me,
gonna stick around?
oh yeah,
Okay.
but to me, that's the
Good.
most important thing, and I think everybody else here too feels the same way. Just like I pointed out to you, it took me 10 minutes to get out of skiways this winter because of congestion of traffic on Beech Mountain Parkway. For someone to let me in out of my road, okay? And meanwhile, I'm seeing people with skis and snowboards walking down into our community area, trying to get to the ski slopes, okay? And then I'm in the road, and it takes me 15 minutes, 2 blocks to get up to Fred's. 15 minutes. And meanwhile, do you know how many people I counted walking by me that were carrying their skis and snowboards? 115.
Walkability.
So you mean to tell me that's not something to be concerned about? And our walking capability up to the dog park that we as a community also brought about. Okay, with the play space, that we've given to the children, so the dogs and the kids aren't together. We have those things, but we also want green space. That's why we're here. We're not here for compact, zero lot lines. I'm not in Florida, I'm here. I'm a full-timer. But because of the fresh air, the birds, the animals that I see, okay, it's not because I want everybody to be here so that my land price goes up, my taxes go
Well,
up,
that's what we have to hear about too.
okay?
Like some cases, increased property values is frowned upon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the other thing that, when we were out doing our tour, we actually, first thing we did is we shuttled up the hill here, and we immediately got out of our shuttle at Public Works. And then we walked around Public Works. And those are some of the most spectacular views, that no one sees, no one knows what's up there. I mean, you probably sneak in, right? You take your recycling. So the best view, and Bob pointed, the best view is when the big trucks drive through their car wash, when they exit, the garage door opening of the exit of the car wash is the best view everywhere, right there.
We treat our city employees
Yep.
well.
The city employees, it's like they have the best quality of life here with the views.
Going to the meeting room, they have
Yeah, I mean, they're everywhere, it's really, and that's the thing, when it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And that was a lot of discussion yesterday, how do we take advantage of all the nature and the views here? And, and so like one of those, like public works, I mean, this is where you put your storage and your dump, right? That's what you call it. And it's like the best view, like some of the best views you can possibly, the highest, best views you can possibly have. So, we're prioritizing that. I hope you understand that, okay? All right, so we'll keep going. All right.
When the city set this up, how to set this up with you folks, did your commission to figure out how to make a commercial section for the town, or was it to make a livable section where you're giving us examples of heavy density of tracking people in around the green or this like that? What's the commission here?
Walkable,
Town center?
yeah, I think they call it a commercial district.
A commercial
Walkable
district,
commercial district.
but not necessarily a walkable residential mixed use.
Well, no, that's kind of what they did, but that's like the zoning, what is the zoning, I think is, but you don't have town center zoning here, or walkable zoning, so I think they were just looking at what they use, and you can probably use it. I mean, again, there are a lot of like technical things like zoning standards that we have to look at.
My basic, what is your commission to develop a commercial area for us, or to develop a town center?
You're gonna tell us. Okay, question back there in the back.
Yeah, in what manner and to what extent are environmental concerns taken into account? Is there an environmentalist on the team in this planning?
That's a really good question. Sometimes we don't talk about it, like, in terms of like, one of the top 5 things. But the idea of doing sustainability is something that we've spent a lot of time, a lot of my career personally working on. I come from 8 generations of engineers. I'm like, this old German stock. And I'm the kind of the renegade of the family. I became an architect of the planet. But they still talk to me, so it's all right. And also I understand things like engineering. I have a little bit of engineering mind. And so when I started working on doing these, kind of walkable communities early on, I kept saying, well, how is all the engineering and infrastructure gonna work? And how can we do this in a way that we're just not paving everything? And like you say, you used the word, I can't remember, but it's
High
density.
Yeah, right. Like,
High density.
well, just, pushing everybody together kind of thing.
Right.
Okay, and, because clearly, probably the majority of you don't want that. But there's a percentage that do, and we're talking about a very small area compared to, the 68 miles of road you have.
Yep.
For how many houses, 300 and something? How many houses?
Well, 340 full-time.
Yeah, 340, yeah.
We have 2,000 on the weekend.
So anyway,
Which weekend? We see 2,000 people on the weekend. In the winter
Anyway,
time,
so,
that's
okay,
rough.
my point is this. So people talk about low impact development, that's a buzzword term. Low impact development was designed to make suburbia more sustainable. And a lot of it had to do with basically things that didn't necessarily work in walkable neighborhoods. Like if you write a rule that says you shall build a rain garden in your front setback, Then and so, well, that sounds good, you know, rain garden. But then you say, okay, wait a minute, so we have to push the house back an extra 30 feet to accommodate the rain garden in the front yard. Then all of a sudden, the front porch connection with the sidewalk, you know, you're so far away from your neighbor, you have to yell to say hello. So that kind of sociability became an issue. We said, okay, well, if we're gonna do rain gardens, design them in the right places, or things like that. So we went through this whole thing, and then I said, look, I'm an engineer, so I put together, for 2 years, we researched green infrastructure in a way that fit hand to glove with walkable neighborhoods, and I actually wrote this handbook. This is like a field guide to green infrastructure. We call it light imprint versus low impact. And light imprint means you lay lightly on the land. And you do it very delicately, and you work with topography, the way that the original plan did with all the roads, you know, running, you know, along the contours. And also there's a toolbox here. You're welcome to look at, you might be interested in this, there's a toolbox that has over 70 tools in a kind of a, this is the manual version, you know, that basically address paving, channeling, storage, filtration, in a way that's calibrated for, you know, what kind of density and what type of location you're in. Because, you know, certain things work better in rural locations, certain things work better in urban locations. So it's all, you know, so anyway, I know a lot about it. And actually, for 10 years, I was going around the country, you know, doing presentations to stormwater conferences, like the keynote to stormwater conferences with 300 engineers in the audience, to kind of explain how they needed to do it better, and they could do it more green and more environmentally. So I just wanted to kind of say, I think there's a lot of knowledge with this team here, and we can, you know, if we put our heads together, I think we can come up with some really good ideas that might work here. Okay. Question here. Any more comments on that, by the way? Does that make sense?
This is a comment on that.
Okay, go ahead.
I think that, having survived through Helene, this mountain has a lot to be thankful for compared to other spots that were getting hurried in hours. But I think it also needs to be considered a wake-up call to us that we cannot continue to grow houses and people and stuff here beyond our capacity to manage the water needs, for one thing. And also, we lost thousands and thousands and thousands of trees. And the next storm is going to literally wash houses away on this mountain. I mean, the erosion needs to be a huge subject to address. And our water bills have gone up double and just in the last few years.
That's a problem when you.
So this is a serious.
Yeah, it's a big problem. A lot of the resort communities, the infrastructure reaches a certain age, and then it has to be repaired or replaced.
And that's one thing.
And then when
that's
that
very
happens,
important, but we have to have the water that we can use.
Right.
You know, we can't.
We're gonna talk about that at 11 o'clock today.
Okay. This is a passion for me. And
Well, good.
Very alarmed by the data.
Well, Cheshire, the creek runs right next to the main street, center in Cheshire, Black Mountain. And part of Cheshire is actually have a branch YMCA there. Actually the theme of Cheshire is wellness. That was the whole thing. Like there are a lot of they call them assemblies, you know, in that area. There's Mine Creek, there's Blue Ridge Assembly, you know, all that. Yeah. Anyway, so the theme of that was wellness. So they built a branch Y across the creek, and then the bridge washed out, and that was the one Y in the whole western North Carolina that closed for like I don't know how many months before.
I just think we're putting ourselves at risk if we're not.
Well, you know, and so somebody called me and said, "We need your help here in Chimney Rock. You know, we need to rebuild all our stores." And I said, well, you know, if you do that, they're all gonna wash away again, because they were built in the wrong place originally, you know, and so you've gotta really, you have to really think about what you're doing. And of course, you know, it goes back, you know, thousands of years, like the Greek philosopher, like Vitruvius said, build on high ground. And the one day I was like, that's what I like about beach, you're on top of a mountain. You know, and I'm like, okay, well, this is the place to be. Yes.
I'd like to hear from the mayor or anybody on the council as to what you hope to accomplish by starting this process.
Thank you.
Chief, you want to answer that question?
Sure. Here's what we want to accomplish. As you noticed, since Helene, actually before Helene, building has exploded. I do a monthly report to the town council on all the building permits. You see all the land being cleared. You spoke about all the building. The building's going to continue. Those are plotted lots that are owned by people and they have the right to build. So we either manage the growth today moving forward, or it manages us. What would you like to do? We have a water issue. We're working to address the water, but if we don't have a plan, we can't manage anything. If we just sit back, leave here, and let it happen, we'll be back in a couple of years and you're going, what happened? Now there's 1,000 homes, now there's 1,200 homes, now we have less water, now we have a problem with the sewer, whatever it is. The roads didn't get any better, the people came. So really, real simple. We either get a plan to manage it, or we say we can't do anything and let it manage us. I'm not that type. I went to the town council, went to the TDA. TDA said, we'll pay for this study. You're not paying for it out of taxpayer money. The TDA, through our visitors, are paying for this. And the town council said, let's do it. I guess I made a convincing argument. I don't know. But I'm not one to be managed. I'm one to manage. And we better get a handle on our growth, or it will surprise us 5 years from now. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I want out of it.
I totally agree with you.
That's what I want
But
out
I
of it.
don't understand the connection between that and looking at putting in a commercial, mostly commercial development, which is more growth.
Okay, all right,
And what
let's-
does that, how does that help us?
So the town, you may not know, but the town has a commercial district. It's an overlay zoning district. It's existed for decades. Jim, how long has that been there? Forever. And that is being developed. There's people that are coming to the town and they want to develop this piece and develop that piece and develop over here. We don't have a plan. And so we've got people who come to the town and say, I want to buy this piece of town property, I want to develop it. And the town council said, stop. I took it to them. I said, these people want to buy the land, this is what they want to build. It's commercial. It's zoned commercial. It's been commercial forever. And the town council said, stop. We don't want to do a piece at a time because it'll look like it looks now, a piece at a time. He was very complimentary that everything looks different. He was excited. He was excited that every time he went past the building, it was different. That may be fine, but the town can either allow all those little pieces of commercial be developed in an existing commercial district, which those landowners have a right to build on. The town can withhold their land. We don't have to allow that to happen. But eventually, that commercial district will be developed with other businesses that don't meet a plan. So it's not bringing more commercial, nothing's being rezoned at this point. We don't even have a plan. This is like the beginning, this is the genesis. But it's either going to happen with us helping control it, or it's gonna happen without us. And the town council has said, they told me, no, we're not gonna, we don't like your idea, Bob. Stop, let's get a plan for the entire commercial district. Let's see what can be done. Let's see what needs to be done, and then let's decide how we're gonna do it.
This entire presentation was based upon the 5 or 6, 7 acres of, I call it the dump. Everything he's talked about as it relates to Beech Mountain is isolated to right there. So I'm not sure exactly what you're kind of.
Well, the corridor, Frank, goes from the town limits up, as you come in on the parkway, all the way down to the entrance to the resort. That is the commercial overlay district.
I understand that.
Now, obviously,
We're looking at the entire town. You can't design in isolation. I think that's the point you're making. You have to look at everything around you and make it all work together.
So Frank, the reason I believe they're looking more focused on that top of the mountain is because it's the top, it's the flattest piece. And when you come into town, before you turn on your road, when you come past Fred's and you make the turn, that's our downtown.
Yep.
And there's a fuel tank.
All the close to it.
And there's, you call it a dump. So I think, and I'm not a planner, I'm a fire chief. But, you know, if you're gonna make this commercial district something with identity, you gotta start there. And that's the elephant in the room. You know, that's ugly. And so we can continue to have ugly, or we can have something else. So I don't know, it's whatever they come up with a plan. They've got a plan where it brings in all the community. That's gotta be painful.
Yeah, but it's gonna be a collective.
And I think when they're done, my only, and I told you this morning, my only thing is, give us something we can do. I don't want a plan that just looks good, is a presentation for somebody else, or sits on the shelf.
How does that solve the issues that's been raised about water, sewer?
It doesn't.
Well, they're gonna
It
do
doesn't.
That's not what we're here
We're gonna
for.
have those problems.
It doesn't, and that's not what their
15
task,
minutes, right.
That's not what we're here for.
and that's not what their task is.
We'd like to take a break, by the way.
The problem is the town to solve, and we're making inroads there. We're replacing millions of dollars and thousands of feet of pipe. We're trying to build another reservoir. We're dredging Buckeye Lake as we sit here today. So, you know, those issues aren't being addressed, but we can wait and build all the infrastructure and then see what happens. I don't think that's the smart thing to do. But to answer your question, that's what we hope to get out of this. We need to get a plan to move forward. And it, you know, I'd like to say it's better than 50-50. I've seen a lot of these plans in my career, and very few get built. And I don't want that. And we've been very clear with Tom and David that give us something we can build, and bring us some marketing economic analysis. The gentleman is gonna talk about that tomorrow, and bring us somebody who can be traffic engineers. We have to have a solution to this gridlock that Eva spoke about, trying to get out of, you know. So they did. They brought in the team. They're here. This is the beginning. I'm excited to see what they bring in the fall when we see it. I'll stand there and tell you it looks pretty and it's no good, or I'll tell you this is how we're going to implement it. But right now we're getting started, and I appreciate y'all being here today. But that's the answer to your question.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have to cut y'all off because we have to rearrange the room for 11 o'clock. We're going to create a big table. And we have to move all the chairs off to the side. We have to bring in the tables from the room, giving instructions to our team.
You had a question?
It's coming from a tennis club. No, that's it.
Do
Thank you.
No, I'm injured.
Anything yet?
Last time I-
All I wanna know is.
Last time I talked to him, he said,
I'm not a pickleball.
on the side of the grass.
Together, somebody